Bill, here we are on the main street, Mitchelstown. Since the bypass, it's really years since I came down through Mitchelstown properly, but you're saying that people still actually get off the bypass to come into town?
Oh yeah, people still come off here. They'll stop on their way from Cork to Dublin or Dublin to Cork, but they're attracted in here because it's actually quite a good town now for food.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm not saying that it's not, but I just wasn't aware of that. We don't hear of restaurants in Mitchelstown making the news.
Things, I suppose we tend to think of West Cork and we tend to think of places like that for food, but here in Mitchelstown, the place that's really given the town its good name has been O'Callaghan's Delicatessen. They're around here now well over, 20, 25 years or more.
And would they be one of many family businesses that continue to do well and thrive?
They've continued to do well, and also new ones have come online. So we'll say you have new little cafes like Praline up near Tesco, French food, French patisseries.
Really?
Yeah, I can see you drooling already.
Well, yeah. I just gave a cake to a lady there for her birthday, and I think there's a slice when I get back. But I don't know a whole lot about Mitchelstown, although I do have relations way over Ballindangan way.
Right,
that would be the Welches. So I know we spoke about that earlier on. But Mitchelstown itself, is it busy? Is it one of the towns like in Ireland that have been hurt, the pubs and the local businesses?
Mitchelstown was hit very badly during the economic crisis.
Was that because of dairy and things?
Because of the dairying industry and redundancies and a huge amount of job losses here at that time. Probably very disproportionate to the size of the town.
But do they make cheese here anymore? Do they do milk? Is there the dairy industry?
Well, the dairy industry is still very strong here, but of course the way the world has changed, there are far less people actually working here now directly in manufacturing.
Oh, okay.
They're not in the manufacturing of cheese. Now, Mitchelstown has the biggest processed cheese plant in the world, as I understand it.
Really?
Believe it or not, but it's employing a lot less people than it was 25 years ago. Yes.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah. And then you have had sort of a diversification of industry here, or activities here. Aldi have established their Munster distribution depot.
Is there work in that?
There has been. I think it's about 200
are young people staying?
People are staying, but Mitchelstown is becoming more and more a commuter town.
Gotcha.
Which is a bit of a problem.
Because of house prices.
Yeah.
So where are we going now, incidentally?
So we're heading up to St. George's Arts and Heritage Centre. It was the former St. George's Church. It's the newest and latest development in the refurbishment and changes that are happening in Mitchelstown. So that literally has just happened in the last 3 months. I happen to be involved in it, so I have a particular interest in showing it to you.
A church?
A church, yeah.
You say that I should spend more time?
Well, no. I keep stressing to people that it is now absolutely secular. There is no religious activity of what.
I thought you'd
whatever
get down on your knees and pray, light candles for your soul.
Too late, probably in our case.
But we spoke of paganism earlier on, remember? And I remember as a kid, way over in my relations' place, there was a place called the Hag's Bed.
Hag's Bed,
Labacally.
Yeah,
this was.
Right.
Tell me about that. It was the upstanding stones with the flat one. We were told that it was a really scary place, that a witch lived there.
Well, the factual side of it is it's the second largest megalithic monument in Ireland.
Wow.
Okay. But the story is interesting because it is matched to some degree by archaeological research.
So they've actually researched it and done a dig there.
Essentially,
they find anything?
Yeah, the name, first of all, Labacally means the Hag's Bed or the Witch's Bed.
Yeah, that's
Hag would mean witch.
We were fascinated by it as kids.
Well, in excavations carried out there by Professor Sean Riordan in the 1950s, the only intact body that was found within the tomb was actually of a young girl.
There was a body in it?
Yes, there was.
We never knew that, but who would have known? Nobody, I suppose.
But it's interesting that the tradition of it being a witch's bed rather than a druid's bed continued for 4,000 years.
And this was a young girl?
A young girl in her teen years, I think mid-teens, as far as I can recall, and she was buried there.
For how long do you think?
Given that the monument is about 4,000 years old, she was there that long. And
she was there when the monument went.
Oh yes, and it was probably put for her. And that monument that you're talking about with the big, huge slab stone on top of it, that was originally covered in smaller stones, which were robbed over the centuries, probably for local house building and activities like that.
I suppose, yeah, needs must.
Yeah,
they wouldn't have realised the consequences.
That's
of their
right.
actions
They
then.
wouldn't, and people
had a lot actually of things that happened with change, you know.
Yes, yeah, and people at one level, while their respect for the site continued, and there was a certain fear and folklore around it. at another level of practicality. When they need a stone or building, they took it.
Yeah. Up Cork. For me, that would be one of my endearing memories as a child. But what are the other attractions in Mitchelstown, generally speaking?
Well,
I mean, is it known for tourism?
It's not known for tourism.
It's known for hard work.
But, a peculiar thing we found since we took over St. George's is that in the first month or so, we had 15 different nationalities coming in the door, which was something we didn't expect.
Yeah.
And you don't think of Mitchelstown as having that tourism element, but the problem, I suppose, has been that tourists are passing through here to other destinations. They haven't had a place to stop and to look at.
Yeah.
So
is that the spire up yonder?
That's the spire up yonder. Yes.
Oh, wow.
It's about 100 feet high or so. We took the building over on the 17th of April. We had our first event 30 days later. Killed ourselves to get that far, but we did.
And what do you use it for now?
It's now
concert. Hello, postperson.
It's concerts, musical activities. We've had band recordings in there. We've had quite a number of shows. Lots of them fundraising for ourselves because.
So as religion tends to wane, the buildings are put to better use.
Well, they're put to a different use.
I
wouldn't dare offend anyone by saying a better use.
Better use. Okay.
At least not publicly.
You're one step ahead of me, kid.
But yeah, look, it's isn't it the way religion is going? That what happens to all these buildings when they become empty, when the congregations become too small, when they can't keep going. If a community doesn't take it over.
I know. I saw that actually yesterday. I was in Doneraile Court. I had an incredible afternoon. Oh, yeah. I mean, it's not Mitchelstown, it's a little bit far away, but it's kind of northeast Cork, isn't it?
No, but there's an interesting thing which we're working on at the moment. Doneraile Court, premier tourism attraction now.
Yeah, and soon to be even bigger again.
Ansgrove Gardens, which is just a few miles south of it. Really important 19th century gardens that the OPW have taken over. Then you have Mallow Castle and Mallow Park.
That's right.
Which Cork County Council is developing.
Yeah.
And we are the fourth corner of that. Because not only are we developing St. George's as an art centre, it's also a heritage centre, which will involve the street in front of it, the one we haven't reached yet, the full length of that street down to King Square.
But what would you determine as being the heritage of Mitchelstown? I mean, I know that there's a statue to John Mandeville in the square. I mean, what's the relevance to that?
Okay, well, before I get to that, I'll explain it this way. Mitchelstown, the earliest reference to it is 1286, so it's that old.
Wow.
But the
town,
town,
a small, tiny market town.
Yes, very small, with a castle. That was demolished, that was completely redeveloped, the town that is, in the 1780s by Robert and Caroline Kingsborough, the future Earl and Countess of Kingston. And
they were the royalty of the area, were they?
They were.
A bit like the St. Ledgers in Doneraile kind of thing.
Except much bigger.
Wow, bigger again.
Mitchelstown Castle, which the new castle of 1823 was the biggest house in Ireland in its day.
Is it still in here? Is it still in existence?
No, because it was looted and burned in 1922.
The Civil War?
Yeah.
If it was looted and burned in the Civil War, they mustn't have been very nice people. Isn't that what they say?
No.
They left Doneraile Court alone because they were said to be nice landlords and kind people.
Well,
that's my understanding.
It wasn't that simple. Because one of the things, I did my master's thesis on the last 40 years of the Kingston estate, which was very much influenced by what happened in the War of Independence, the Land War, and this is where John Mandeville comes into it.
He was a Fenian, was he?
No, he wasn't. His uncle founded the Fenians, Colonel John O'Mahony. And in fact, it was his uncle coined the phrase the Fenian, or Fenianism. But no, it wasn't. At that particular point in the 1880s, the Kingston estate and the wall across the road from us here was part of their domain.
Does that wall form part of their estate then?
Yes, it did. Just like you have a wall in Doneraile.
And were they given that land by the Henry VIII?
They acquired it through marriage. The first of the family in Ireland were heading in this way.
And is it gone now and there is no castle anymore?
The castle was was looted first and burned in August 1922. To put it in a national context, the It was the same day that Arthur Griffiths died in Dublin. It was 8 days before Michael Collins was shot dead. And it was in the context of
it was the height of the Civil War now. Tensions were raging.
In that
Collins is shot in Bale-na-Blah.
Yeah, and in the 24-hour period in which Mitchelstown Castle was looted and burned, the 2 military barracks in Fermoy were burned, Mallow Railway Viaduct was blown up. The people in Mallow only succeeded in stopping the bridge there from being blown up because the parish priest and the rector went on the bridge and led the people in prayer. And they basically told the IRA, if you're going to blow this, you blow us with it.
With us on board.
Otherwise it was lost. And then when you look at that in the context of Mitchelstown, what actually happened, yeah, of course there was a hatred of English and landlordism and all that kind of thing. But when I published what was basically my thesis in the early 2000s, there was a local reaction which was quite interesting. People now understand what a loss that castle has been to Mitchelstown.
So they burnt it in the Civil War. Which side?
Free State.
Okay.
Sorry, not Free State, the Republican side.
Okay. So what exists there now?
Nothing. In the 1920s, the stones of the building were purchased by the monks of Montmellery. So anybody who visits Montmellery, you're looking at Mitchelstown Castle.
Do you think it's a loss to the community?
Of course it is, yeah.
My God.
Now, that wouldn't always have been said. I can remember in 1989, I wrote an article for the local newspaper here, the Avondhu. They would not run the term looted and burned. But there is a very thick file in the National Archives which clearly shows that it was looted because it lists the contents that were taken. Now, the twist in the story is this. After that reaction to the book happened, there was a positive and negative. I went to a friend of mine whose father had been a Fianna Fáil TD in the 50s, and he said, look, when he was a young fella in the 50s, he used to go around with his father into the die-hard houses. And he said every one of them to a man admitted that the Kingstons were good landlords. Burning Mitchelstown Castle had nothing to do with whether they were good landlords or bad landlords. It was just time to get rid of them.
And the looting then, I don't want to open all wounds, but was this looting done by native Mitchelstown people?
Yeah. I could take you to houses that have various objects out of the castle. I know objects that were returned to the family because I've been in contact with them over the years.
How did they feel about it in the years after?
Well, I think the best summing up of it is that, again, sometime probably in the late 90s, I interviewed, for historical purposes, a man called Colonel Anthony King-Harman. Now, he would have been the owner of the castle had it still been standing. And I asked him a question that I'm sure nobody had ever asked him before that, because I asked him, how do you feel about the men who burned the castle? And he instantly replied, without thought, à la recherche du temps perdu, seeking times that are past. He said, I know that whatever I might feel about it, my sons feel absolutely nothing. And that is as it should be.
Yeah, okay.
We need to kind of park our history, understand it, understand the rights and wrongs of it. There are rights and wrongs on all sides.
They were of a time, yeah.
Yes, and understand it's part of our heritage, it's part of where we came from.
Yeah, and this you're very proud. Incidentally, I think that a lot of these places, those castles, those big homes, they couldn't afford to run them, you know. I mean, the OPW took them over county councils because the upkeep was just, they were freezing cold places to live in.
And well, one of the stories
that were happy to see the back of them.
That TD I mentioned was John W. Muher, a very forward-thinking Fianna Fáil TD. And I remember him telling me one time that he knew Elizabeth Bowen, the writer. And he said that he remembered her telling him that even on the calmest night of the year, it sounded like there was a gale blowing around the castle.
That's right. That's amazing because she spent a lot of time in Doneraile Court. I saw photographs of her yesterday. She was a real bohemian kind of a chick, you know. She really was like kind of I'd say they had incredible parties, but she begged her relations to help her with the upkeep of her home, and they said no. And
no. And the thing about
it was bought by some guy who knocked it.
But the big thing about those big houses was, and it's something we don't kind of understand from the kind of backgrounds we come from, there was a huge social dimension. They were expected to entertain their guests. They were expected to throw on good food and all the rest of it, even though they didn't have the money to do it.
They didn't, sure, and they had to have coats in the hallway for people to put on. It was so bloody cold.
There's Mark Bence-Jones has written brilliantly about it in The Twilight of the Ascendancy, in which he describes how they didn't even employ new butlers. They kept on the old butlers and they got so old they weren't able to work anymore.
I know.
You know,
I know.
they moved around the house as the roof leaked. They moved to another room.
We look at it through our romantic eyes, don't we?
Yeah, we
and
do.
They were far from that.
But
where are we now in this beautiful building, which I'm sure you're very proud of?
So this is St George's Arts and Heritage Centre. As I said earlier, we took it over only in April. We're in the process. In fact, you could say we're well into the process of developing it as an arts and heritage centre.
And what was it? Church of Ireland?
Former Church of Ireland. Church
Is that
of
why
St.
that's
George.
in English? Praise God in His sanctuary. Praise Him
all
and
ye
all
people.
Because if that was Catholic, it would be Latin, wouldn't it?
Yeah, more than likely, yes. And what we're doing here is there are two objectives to what we're doing. The primary objective is to save the building.
How old is it?
220 years.
I'll be darned. A lot of this original?
A lot of this is
the
original.
panelling, clearly? The stained glass windows?
The stained glass, that's actually our oldest window, that stained glass window.
The pews?
That had been covered for 130 years.
Nuts!
And a month after we got this place, we took the wall down. And at our first event here, which was, it was Eamon Walsh, who was a fabulous singer, and the Lismore Choir. During that concert, we turned off all the lights here. We had the lights coming in through, complete darkness. And then we put on, the lights were put on in the window here, and said this was part of the past, and the future was discovering this.
And I love that stained glass altar window.
It's beautiful. Now, that window is dating to 1884.
Reasonably young then, by comparison to the rest of the building.
Yeah.
It's magnificent. And these are just commemorations and memorials too.
And they're interesting.
Benefactors?
Percival Barton Lord was killed in the Khyber Pass in Afghanistan.
Wrong place, wrong time.
The Reverend Disney, we believe, is connected to the Disney family.
Prove it.
But we have a bit of work to do on it.
Prove it, and you're on the pig's back.
Church of Ireland people here have claimed that.
Well, Disney is an extraordinary name. I think there is only one family of Disney.
That's all.
So it's got to be.
They originated in Clonmel, and this branch came to Mitchelstown.
You're on to a winner here, kid.
Well,
you need to prove that.
We need
Home of the Disney dynasty.
We'll take $500,000 off him, nothing less.
His daughter actually is the woman with all of the money at the moment.
So?
Yeah,
that's so.
Yeah, incredible woman.
It would be a woman.
Wants to give it all away.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Read an interview
Andrew,
with her last week.
did you hear that?
Yeah. She's got lots of money to spend. That's a story in itself.
That is, yeah.
Rob Disney.
And
what year is that?
1832 when he died.
Okay, so their family may have emigrated during the famine?
The Church of Ireland believed that they did, and that they left here at that period.
So West Cork's got Ford, and you've got
We think Disney. We've got Disney, we think we've got Disney. Wow. But we also have other little links here that are kind of weird and wonderful. You passed on the way in a memorial to the Reverend William Leach, whose grandson was the painter John Leach. So, the other way around actually. William was the painter. So we have these sort of interesting connections to the building. William Trevor, the writer, was baptised in this church. And William, who I knew when he was an absolute gentleman, he regarded Mitchelstown as his home.
I get all of that, and I understand the significance of all of that. But this is the moneymaker. Have you written to them?
No, listen, we only have the place 3 months.
In memory of the late Reverend Rob Disney, 1832, July 1832.
You've
got to let them know.
Yeah. You know,
the Yanks are mad for chasing down their roots.
Yeah.
We could have a Disney World here, just off the second. What is it? The number 12 slip.
I'm beginning to wonder now. Do we really want a Disney World in Mitchelstown?
Great story. That's the story of the day for me.
Here without it.
I hear that. Doc tells me there's lively entertainment, lad.
So part of the plan that we're working on now is that we are developing or coming together with a plan with Cork County Council that will see St George's united to King Square and Kingston College through this street. It's still owned by the Church of Ireland. They changed the terms of the trust in the 1980s. So any age and any religion can go in there now. So if you're on the public housing list, you can apply for a house down there. And you will be seriously considered.
It still does good all these years later.
Yeah.
It's an original Robert Street
Street, yeah. So you have this continuity of buildings. I mean, if you think of it, the college opened in 1776. That's the year of American independence.
And are we heading that way now?
We're heading that way now.
And will we see original buildings?
And we will see the original buildings.
And are they still being lived in by the elderly?
Yeah.
That's some legacy, isn't it?
King Square is the finest Georgian square in any small town in Ireland. It was built in 2 phases, the sort of phase before 1776 and the phase of 1780 onwards. The 1780 onwards is on this side as we're coming down, and the opposite side, which you will see in a moment coming before you, is the side with Kingston College and Chapel. So it makes sense for St. George's.
Talking about here?
Yes, yeah. So you see the lovely Georgian square of trees and lime trees.
It is, isn't it?
Yes, yeah. And the part of where we're walking here used to be known as God, the name it just escaped me. Here in the square below, then people used to play tennis, croquet, bowling used to be played there.
Okay.
So, and we have photographs of people doing that. It was
Protestantism, if you like.
It was, and they're really traditionally in Mitchelstown. There wasn't any kind of significant conflict between Protestant and Catholic
religions.
here.
Yeah.
And that's largely because after the early 1800s, the Kingstons didn't get involved in proselytising. Each side kind of lived in...
A man above in Doneraile in the 1700s banned the playing of all GAA sports. That went down like a lead balloon, I think. Yeah.
Whereas
that didn't happen here.
But here, even in the 1900s, I have the accounts book of Mitchelstown Castle for the period up to 1922. And in that, you can see where they're making donations to local charities.
Ah, well, that's very good.
The local musical bands, the likes of the Red Cross, they're all being supported.
Beautiful.
So this is what we'll do. We'll just cross the road here, and we'll turn around and just look back from down here, and you'll see how it all kind of works together.
It is beautiful, isn't it?
Oh, it's a beautiful square. It's an absolutely gorgeous square. This is Kingston College.
These are the college houses.
And we're in King Square. Yes. So the college houses face south. Now, if you just look around behind you, and you'll see how St. George's Church closes the view as you come up that street.
And what's the significance of this piece of ironmongery?
It was a water pump for the townspeople. The third Earl of Kingston had pumps erected around the town. This is the only survivor. Unfortunately, the Heritage Society restored it in around 2000, made it fully functional, and it was turned off by Cork County Council because it was using water. But the water was circulating in a tank.
But it wasn't using water.
It wasn't, of course. But
what kind of a brain dead and lame decision?
So we have this pump that has a perfectly functioning pump underneath in a 20-foot deep well.
Well, why don't you get it sorted?
They won't agree to it.
Who's your TD?
Irish Water. Don't start me on TDs, will you?
Say no more. Bloody Irish
Water. They're not all bad, but we could do with a few good ones. So here you have the range of houses. You have Elizabeth Bone referred in Bones Court to the colours of the doors. That still continued. The yellows, the blues, the mauves, the greens.
Let us finish with a panoramic view of some of the most beautiful homes in Ireland. So beautifully laid out and still being lived in today on the same agreement with regards to the legacy from all those years ago for the elderly.